Ba ba da 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 ba ba ba. I don't know what that was. Anyway, hey, everybody. It is day 80. No, it's not even 80 anymore. It's day 90. Oh my god. It's day 90. Day 90, 10 more days. 10 more days until the end. Holy mother. That's not a lot of days left. Not a lot of days left. Anyway, day 90, this being the last day of bad review week, being bad reviews of good things, good reviews of bad things, or just bad reviews of bad things. One of those things. And it could be, well, in this case, today's case, it's video games. In fact, it's been mostly video games this week, apart from one on anime and one on movies. I thought there'd be more, but no, just those two. Just those two. Everything else was video games. Video games. And I apologize. I'm not sure if I'll read the entire review for this one this week, mainly because I just want to get back to watching E3 footage and catch up on all the E3 stuff I missed, because I live basically on the opposite side of the world, so everything is basically back to front, and everything, just all the announcements. So how about that Sony announcement? That was, wow, I'm glad I managed to get up to watch that at least. You know, I wake up late. It's a bad habit. Anyway, so today's review is going to be, I'm going to be reading a review for something you guys probably haven't heard of unless you're a rabid. No, that's not what I'm going to do it. An avid. Yes, avid, not rabid. You could be rabid as well. I don't know. I don't judge people upon their life choices, you know. Avid follower of my voiceover work. It's a flash adventure game called Vorago, and I played a character in that called Jonathan, and this is going to be a review of it. Now, whether this is a bad review of a bad thing, or a good review of a bad thing, or a bad review of a bad thing, actually, it won't be a good review of a bad thing, because it's, yeah, this author, the person who wrote this particular review, obviously hated it a lot. It's by Catatoni... No, just Catoni15, who apparently just wrote this one review. He said he was going to write a whole bunch of reviews, but he just wrote this one review and then never wrote another thing ever again, because obviously the game just overwhelmed him with something, because it was either so good or so bad that he just could not comprehend. So he had to write down his feelings into a WordPress document. I don't know why I'm doing that. I'm sorry. Feeling very dramatic for some reason. Anyway, so it's, now I have to admit, I have been in a variety of games that have been sent up in the past. You see what I did there? Yeah. Feeling trapped by those reviews that, leave me in the pursuit of an escape from being stranded in this place of exile. Oh wait, we haven't announced that one yet. Forget that last word that I used. Anyway, yeah, so here's the review for, oh crap, there's a lot of prerequisites apparently. Geez, I don't know if I can read this one. Oh, what the hell, I'm here already, so if some of this goes over your head, then obviously it is going to be difficult for you. Okay, review of Vorago by Catoni15. I'm not sure if I'll read the entire thing because it is pretty long, so I'll just stop around the time. You know, if it goes on for more than half an hour, yeah, that's probably not going to be good. Okay, review number 1, Vorago, the only review, actually. I've always been interested in reviewing the works of amateur animators for a good while now. I've been amazed by some of the things people have managed to make on their own computers, though sometimes that amazement isn't always of the good variety. Heh. So I'd like to use this blog to take a look at amateur games and animations and try to give a thoughtful review. My goal here is not only to give surface-level reviewing, I want to try and delve as deep as I can, whenever I can. You know, to try and give you guys something to think about. Heh. Also, these reviews are intended for those who have already finished watching and or playing the following animations and games that I chose to review. In other words, this contains spoilers. Before reading, you should have seen/completed the following movies, animations, and games: Vorago, The Mist, The Trapped Trilogy, and Pet Sematary. And he spelled cemetery wrong. Unless, of course, that's how it's spelled in the game. In the movie itself. That's a lot of prerequisite reading/watching/playing, to be honest. I mean, that's not what reviewers should do. There should be nothing. It should be about what they feel from the game itself. I mean, obviously you're going to go, well, this is this year's Killzone or Call of Duty or whatever, so sometimes reviews do that, but it's not a prerequisite that you've played those games to understand the review, which unfortunately this review has done. But, I'm not here to critique the review, I'm just here to read it. So let's do that. Oh, and this post contains some profanity because I curse quite liberally. My bad. My bad. Ha. He enjoys laughing a lot, doesn't he? Like, hey and ha. Okay, well now that's out of the way. Well now that's out of the... Let's go on with this, shall we? I think he meant to put way somewhere in there, but whatever. Okay, and here we go. The review for Vorago. Sometimes I mess up words, sometimes I go Govaro, Ragavo, Vogora. Whatever. Anyway, he gives a game link here. You can find Vorago on Newgrounds if you want to play it yourself. Ha ha ha! Sorry. Given summary of the game. A cinematic point-and-click thriller derived from the Latin the pit/abyss. Vorago takes place in a small town off the interstate, stumbled upon by a couple under the most unfortunate circumstances. After the tragic loss of their daughter, Ira and Jonathan find themselves in a car accident with no direction. When the couple reach the nearest town, a loud warning siren sounds off as a mysterious fog covers the atmosphere. And most of that is actually from the movie The Mist, which apparently the author didn't think most people would know about, but people did. People did. Anyway, some background information is required here. Vorago is the brainchild of none other than Patrick Majewski, more commonly known as Godlamations. He owns a website by the name Godlamations, didn't see that coming, did ya? Which seems to be dedicated to spreading the word of God, Christ, and Christianity through flash games and animation as mediums. Majewski's website, and it's just godlymations.com. I thought it'd be godlymations.com.au because he was in Australia. I think he's moved now. Because Australia is a horrible place. We should all move away from Australia. Anyway, so with this in mind, it's not surprising that this game, much like Majewski's other games and animations, includes Christian content. The only difference between this game and his past works seems to be that the Christianity here is more explicit. It's also worth mentioning that this game seems to be inspired by Stephen King's The Mist. There's even a little bit of Silent Hill here too. I'll get to this in a little bit. Vorago is basically a horror point-and-click game. It has other elements introduced in by the minigames, such as first-person shooter. Now, on to my thoughts. And now we get a breakdown. The good. The background art is awesome. It was very, very well done. It effectively captures the horrifying feeling you're meant to get from the game. Very dark and very dismal. The music is also worthy of note. It was well chosen and composed, also perfect for adding to the atmosphere of the game. Voice acting is pretty good here too, with the exception of Amy's voice, which makes her sound flat and like she has a speech impediment. Other than that, pretty ace. Sadly, that's all that's good about this game. And there's a screenshot of one of the backgrounds. Looks like the gas station when you first approach it, and the caption is, "Isn't it sexy?" It might be. It might very well be. All right. The bad. The character art and the background art tends to be in stark contrast to each other. Majewski should have just had the same person who did the background art do the character art. It would have been harmonized and would have looked a hell of a lot nicer too. The only thing I was on this matter anyway is that relying on someone else for art can be time-consuming and out of your control. You'd be forced to wait on a person who has whatever schedule they may have. The benefit of doing the art yourself being that disasters, accidents, etc. notwithstanding, you can get it done whenever you like. Sorry, it's just when you like. And then we got a picture of the screenshot of the actual characters on the background. Artistic dissonance, says the caption. The wait still would have been worth it, though. The incident with the cat and flies was just ridiculous. It didn't fit with the rest of the story. It was too damn out there. The players are supposed to be caught in a world of murderous monsters trying to kill them. It's Vorago, damn it! You know, Latin for the pit/abyss. Ugh. I'm trying to remember what happened with the cat and the flies. I think it was some weird puzzle. Like most games from Gothimations with the first-person shooter thing. First-person perspective adventure thing. It has weird puzzles. I think in this particular case, you had to set fire to a cat so that it jumps around the room a lot and then ends up plastering itself over a mirror. So one of the characters can't use the mirror to see around the store anymore, or something like that. It was a very silly, very silly puzzle. Yeah, which is par of the course, unfortunately, with these sorts of games. Unfortunately, it's gotten better in recent years with adventure games, but mainly because adventure games are dying, and one of the reasons is because of stupid puzzles like this. So they decided to, what can we do to make the puzzles less dumb, a lot less dumb. Anyway, continuing on with the review, another one related to the plot. What the hell was the point of making the player get the tape that's with Seth pointing the gun at Rick? It doesn't do anything in the long run. It was such a waste of time. Ira never bothers to tell anyone what she sees on it. No one does anything about Seth. If it was just meant to give the player more background and insight, then I say, pointless. I already know Seth is a trigger-happy maniac. We seriously weren't supposed to be able to tell that from the cutscene where he was about to put a gun on Rick for leaving? Really? Are we that stupid? I think I messed up that line. We seriously weren't supposed to be able to tell from the cutscene where he was about to pull a gun on Rick for leaving? Really? Are we that stupid? I'm still not getting that sentence right. Let's back up a bit. It was such another one related to the plot. What the hell was the point of making the player get the tape with Seth pointing a gun at Rick? It doesn't do anything in the long run. It was such a waste of time. Ira never bothers to tell anyone what she sees on it. No one does anything about Seth. If it was just meant to give the player more background and insight, then I say pointless. I already know Seth is a trigger-happy maniac. We seriously weren't supposed to be able to tell that from the cutscene where he was about to pull a gun on Rick for leaving? Really? Are we that stupid? Puzzles aren't too bad in this game. The flamethrower just didn't make a lot of sense. Once again, Majewski forces his players to go and look for a walkthrough. Sigh. A lot of people complained about the minigames. I didn't have a problem with either the axe minigame or the shotgun minigame, even though I hate first-person shooters. It was the car minigame that was obnoxious. Majewski could have fixed this problem easily by possibly changing the POV point of view the player has when controlling the car to a bird's eye view or something. From the player's viewpoint, it is very, very difficult to see where the car is in relation to the traps set around it. Beating the minigame is more a thing of trial and error than anything else. Yeah, I hated all the minigames, actually. I never actually completed Vorago, even though I was in it. I did manage to hear most of my voice acting, but yeah, the actual completion of Vorago was out of my skills and abilities as a gamer, of which I hardly have any anyway. And finally, the ugly. The story is just awful. Majewski claims that he was inspired by The Mist, but it's more like he took the premise of the story and gutted it to suit his own religious needs. For those of you who've seen the movie, then you know the only religious voice that's offered in it is that of Mrs. Carmody. And we all know what a lovely and charming woman she was. I've never seen the movie, so I don't know how it goes. But I'm guessing from the italicized, lovely and charming woman she was neither of those things, neither lovely nor charming. So, I get sarcasm. Whoa! Okay, continuing. Despite the fact that I'm not Christian, I will say there was sort of an unfair voice to give that religion. So I suppose if Majewski was watching that and didn't seem all that thrilled with his presentation, then I wouldn't be surprised. It's understandable, after all, to feel a bit miffed that your religion isn't given a really good rep. I could see where he might be coming from with this. Regardless, I still think what he did was wrong. There is no justifying taking someone else's story and twisting it to your own ends. Owned ends? No, own ends. What makes it even more insulting is the fact that he turned the mist, fog, smog, whatever they decided to call it in the game, into something that sprung from God's will. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Majewski took the mist, the one that was explained as a result of marching up by military/scientists in the movie, and used it to usher in the end times. It is the end of humankind as we know it. You might wonder what this does to the story, other than turning it into one giant religious preach fest. Turning the mist into something of God's will changes the meaning of the deaths in the game and how each character is ended. In the mist, the giant creatures roaming are merely acting on some animal instinct to hunt and kill, so a lot like the animals in our universe. It was a matter of survival of the fittest. The deaths of the characters in the movie was a simple matter of unfortunate luck or stupidity. There was no deeper meaning to it. It was cruel and unfair, certainly. Scroll down a bit, but not in Vorago. Whether on purpose or as a result of his unconscious thinking, Patrick Majewski set up the deaths of each character in a way that seemed, in his universe, fitting to them. Let's look at each character individually first. Oh, by the way, lots of spoilers at this point because he's obviously going to talk about character deaths. Most of the characters sort of die in this thing. So is it really spoilers to just say that all the characters are dead by the end of the game? All the characters are dead, but most of the characters are dead? I don't know. Okay, the first character is Ira, and we have a picture of her, and the captain just says she's just there. Ira is no one particularly remarkable. She is the playable character and tends to come off pretty flat. This just seems to be a matter of Majewski being utterly inept at writing good female characters, since they tend to come off as uninteresting, whiny/bitchy, and one-dimensional. She's presented as being a loving wife when she isn't bitching at Jonathan anyway, protects a child, Amy, and otherwise seems to be a decent person. Not much else to say. It's very difficult how to pin Ira on this. I'm more inclined to say that she likely represents the wife/love interest/supporter of the casual Christian, Jonathan. She isn't really subjected to any horrifying physical pain, but she is left with Jonathan twitching in her arms, crying and begging for help. It's also worth bringing up that both she and Jonathan neglected to pay attention to their daughter, Anya, which resulted in Anya's death. The girl was forced to find her entertainment elsewhere, which turned out to be near a street, where she gets mowed down. Neglecting a child seems to be a crime which Ira pays for by suffering as she does, and Jonathan too, for that is added to what I have to say about him below. And then we get to Jonathan. Yeah, it went from talking about Ira to talking about Anya in the middle there. That was a bit confusing. So... No, we'll just keep going. Jonathan! Now we get to talk about Jonathan, which was my character from Vorago. And there's a picture of Jonathan with blood streaming down his face because he hit himself in the head. And the caption is, "Real Christians don't drink and drive. Silly Jonathan." Ha 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 ha. Ah, silly Jonathan. Silly. Anyway, Jonathan. Jonathan isn't given the most flattering of introductions since he's first seen. Jonathan isn't given the most flattering of introductions since he's first seen arguing with his wife. Of course, considering they both got into a car crash, it's not hard to see what he and Ira are It's not hard to see that he and Ira are both irate. I think he meant to say it's not hard to see why he and Ira are both. Well, no, both sentences actually make sense. Never mind. When we find the flask in the turned-over car, it's implied that Jonathan was drinking while driving, which may have likely contributed to the crash other than the deer that ran in the middle of the road. Actually, he confirms this by asking annoyed, "So what? Can't I have a drink every now and then?" When the player reaches the convenience store in Strasbourg, convenience store, or just gas station, or petrol kiosk, or something. Anyway, when the player reaches the convenient store in Strasbourg, he spends the majority of the game out of commission. This is due to his neck injury, the extent of which is never really elaborated on. If you think about it, Jonathan's injury didn't always seem severe enough to keep him out of action. There were cut scenes where he looked like he could move just fine, like when he jumped up at Ira, saying that she was going to go to the pharmacy. Plus, the blood seemed to disappear and reappear on his face randomly, the result of inconsistent drawing, no doubt. Jonathan most likely represents what one may call a casual Christian. This person may be a Christian in name, but doesn't possess a strong enough faith or deep enough understanding to be considered a true Christian. Jonathan tells Seth in a cutscene that he was raised in a Christian family, which seems to be Jonathan's justification for knowing and or understanding. This is a lot like these people when argued with by those who consider themselves true Christians in comparison, defending themselves by saying this kind of thing. To people like Majewski, that isn't good enough. I think this reviewer is reading a little bit too much deeply into this, but it's fun. It's fun to see how much thought he put into this. Kind of fun. And Rick, who is a blonde-haired guy who runs the store and who bears a uncanny... the caption says, "Yep, Rick aims high," and he's playing with a little toy car while minding the store. And then we get screenshots of the last in the Trap trilogy, Escape, which he compares him to another character from Escape who turned out to be a rapist. And because they look fairly similar, blonde guys with hard eyes. Coincidence? The caption says coincidence, probably, possibly, conveniently, but I doubt it. Okay. Ugh. Oh man, I'm not even halfway through this goddamn review. It's still going on. Okay, Rick. Rick is introduced after the player arrives at the convenience store. He doesn't seem to aspire to much and seems content with working in the convenience store for however long. That's gonna kill me just saying the convenient store. Aside from being lazy and unambitious, God. In July, Aside from being lazy and unambitious, Rick is... Aside from being lazy and unambitious, Rick is otherwise a fairly friendly and approachable guy. He also might be quite the ladies' man if we take Tark's description of Rick to heart. And the quote is, "He gets all the chicks and leaves nerds like me in the dust." Rick most likely represents the scoffing non-believer. when Seth tells Ira that the fog outside is linked to supernatural forces and that it's the devil's work, Rick proceeds to say, "Supernatural forces, my ass." That's not his voice. I forget. Rick had a very interesting accent. Everybody else was... Well, actually, no. Everybody had an interesting accent. Nobody had a consistent accent. Why were we all out in America if we didn't all have the same, like, kind of American accent? I mean, it's, because he got his friends from Australia to do voices as well. And lots of accents everywhere. It's quite hilarious. Anyway... Rick proceeds to say, "Supernatural forces, my ass," and to tell Seth that there's nothing out there. When challenged by Seth to step outside, Rick hesitates and merely tells Seth that he doesn't feel like it, that he needs the right motivation. This is a lot like a Christian challenging a non-believer to prove Christianity wrong, or to prove that God doesn't exist, and the non-believer sulks and retreats, making some weak comeback on his/her behalf. Later on, when Seth refuses to let Ira leave and there's an argument, Rick rolls his eyes and tells Seth that he's going out there because it beats waiting around for something to happen. Okay, I also find it worth noting that Rick's ladies' man status is an attribute that Majewski doesn't seem too fond of in other men. That is, he doesn't seem to like men who are confident with women, or those who may be more forward and aggressive with their approach. It is possible that he lumps people like Rick in, or at least close to, rapists, men who force themselves on women, since it seems that Rick bears a little resemblance to Jason White from Majewski's other game, Escape, who was explicitly a rapist. It should be noted that there needs to be allowed a discrepancy. It should be noted that there needs to be allowed a discrepancy between the two portraits for artistic style and game atmosphere, but the two characters seem to have that young look with the blonde, spiky, cool guy hair going on. It's also likely that Majewski's like Tark in this regard. In the dust because of guys like Rick. Majewski has it out for this guy for sure. Yeah, I guess you can look at it like that. If you want, all blonde guys are rapists. That's done by Majewski are rapists. That's an interesting theory. Interesting theory. Okay, and continuing, for an example of Majewski's feelings on men who force themselves on women, you might want to take a look at the thread he posted on his forum here, and there's a link to his forum link on Godlimations, which you can look up yourself if you decide to look at the link for the Vorago review. Anyway, keep on going. Well, Majewski seems concerned about these male cockroaches infesting decent religious grounds with their obnoxious and freaking weird stalker personalities. It's also likely that the incident was more personal for him. He might have been interested in the girl, but was beaten to the punch because of guys more confident and forward than him, and in his mind willing to ignore the fact that they were in a religious... let's try that again. Jeez. He might have been interested in the girl, but was beaten to the punch because of guys more confident and forward than him, and, in his mind, willing to ignore the fact that they were in a religious setting and hitting on a girl, which he considers inappropriate. Also, it's likely he's exaggerating in his own post. Interpret that however you will. One last note, I really have no idea why Majewski made Rick specifically Dutch. I think it has less to do with what he actually is than the fact that he has some kind of foreign accent. Girls dig foreign guys with accents. I know that he lives in Australia, but I honestly couldn't tell you how many Dutch people live there. Never been. As a matter of fact, we have quite a very multicultural. obviously Majewski was friends with this Dutch guy, and yeah. No, we get people from all around the world. I mean, what, you think all Australians are like white and all go like, "G'day, mate, toss another shrimp on the barbie for ya? Oh, too right, okay, mate, cheers." No, not all Australians speak like that. I wonder if he knew the fact that I was Australian. Maybe he didn't think Jonathan was the voice for Jonathan was Australian. Who knows? Anyway, continuing on with, okay, and we got Tark. Tark is the son of the local science geek. Tark is the son of the local science geek, according to Seth. He's not terribly friendly when you approach him and seems a bit snappish, though considering the fact that he was trying to fix a broken fax machine and that it wasn't cooperating, this is understandable, I suppose. He's a classic nerd figure and has a moment or two of sarcasm like his father, presumably. Tark is inclined towards scientific/logical explanations and doesn't think much of the supernatural, or Seth for that matter. Tark has shown a few instances of guts. Tark has shown a few instances of guts. Once when he took up the axe to be prepared to fight the flying creatures outside to take the initiative, and when he went out with Ira to the pharmacy. He used the axe to protect her from the things that came at them. Shown a few instances. Right. Tark most likely represents the scientist, or rather, Majewski's view on scientists. Looks down on beliefs like religion to be out of date and primitive. Brushes off the idea of what he considers supernatural nonsense, like God, and will always embrace scientific reasoning before anything else. If any of you have seen Majewski's short animation God and the Scientist, well, you know he doesn't think very much of them. Go ahead, watch it, and there's a link to the animation in question, which you can also watch by yourself if you search Newgrounds, or if you just go to the review and then click on that link. And this thing was submitted to Newgrounds 4 years ago. 4 years from 2010, February, 5th of February, so 2006 then. Sad to see that even around July 2009, this ignorant and biased thought still persisted to make it into this game. Oh man, it's already too long. I think we'll finish with the character reviews, and then that's it. I think we've got just two more. We've got Seth. And there's a picture of Seth. I wonder if... okay, let's just read it. You know something? I was going to give Majewski kudos for finally having a Christian character who was actually negative, but then I realized something. It's not even his character. Seth is Mrs. Commodi. Except with a mustache and a penis, there I said it. Seth represents the religious zealot. This one's a certainty. Essentially, whatever Mrs. Commodi is, Seth is. He's a raving, ranting lunatic no one is expected to take seriously. Oddly enough, it turns out that, unlike Mrs. Commodi, Seth's ranting isn't entirely wrong, which sort of leaves a bad taste in my mouth because Seth is a complete monster in this story, and he turns out to be right. And we got a picture of Seth Carmody. Seth Carmody. Haha, I think what he's trying to get there. I don't know if this is all meant to be like negative. Surely the fact that a character made you feel this strongly in what a game is meant to be Christian, isn't that a good thing? You know, presenting the point of view of a truly, truly terrible person, human being who also happens to be Christian. You know, isn't that something worth noting about? Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway. And then finally we got Amy. Amy's the kid who basically sits around, looks cute, and does nothing. A lot like the boy in the mist. She does shove a can off a shelf and onto Seth's head, though. Kudos for that, at least. Amy most likely represents the innocent child. Children have a tendency to be viewed as close to sinless as any human being could get. And, oh dear Lord, okay, no, I'm not going to read the rest of this because it just goes on with, talking about the various deaths and how they relate to their level of Christianity. I'm going to skip down to the conclusions, if I can just read this quickly. Conclusions. While this game has a couple of good points, they don't come close to making up for all of the bad that's in it. Just the way Majewski handled characters alone makes this an ugly piece. Never mind the whole taking whatever Stephen King work he got his hands on and twisting it up entirely issue. That itself is a whole nother can of worms. I believe that if Majewski keeps carrying on the way he does in his games, with his skewed point of view on other kinds of people, he'll just end up hurting his own cause in the end. Why should anyone feel compelled to listen to someone who's closed-minded and ignorant about lifestyle/philosophy/personalities different from his own? This results in people who only think like him or have thoughts close enough to his to like the game and grasp its message. Everyone else ends up feeling alienated and annoyed. The bottom line is that unless Majewski is going to learn to be a better writer, he should stay away from serious genres like drama. His biased points of view tend to color them, leaving no room whatsoever for anyone else's point of view to get a decent chance. This game is the absolute worst offender, being such a blatant example, but his Trapped trilogy also suffers from something like this in a lesser degree. This leaves his characters and his stories empty and one-sided, religiously heavy-handed. Patrick Majewski should stick to the works he does that have no plot. Patrick Majewski should stick to the works that he does that have no plot, like Deep Chamber, or his goofy pieces like Happy and Violet or Digital Freedom, because they're more suited to his personality and odd humor. Rating 1.5 stars out of 5, or whatever. What have you? Okay. I think that's enough. That's probably enough. Okay. So, that was a review for Vorago by Katoni15, his first and only review for anything ever, because apparently that's the first and last entry on his WordPress. I hope you enjoyed that. That was Bad Review Week. Bad reviews are bad things, bad reviews are good things, good reviews are bad things, one of those things. And tomorrow we start again with a new themed week, and the very last of the 100 Days of Narration challenge, very last one. And I know there's another one. There should be another one on day 98 because that's 7 days later, but I'll explain tomorrow. I'll explain during the day why I can't do that on the 98th day. All right. Okay. I'll see you guys then. See yas. Hey, you seem like a cool, wonderful, and or awesome individual with impeccable taste in voice actors. So why not follow me on Facebook or Twitter? You can keep up with the latest projects I'm in, or that my friends are in, or that you could be in, because I occasionally post links to open editions to various projects that require voice acting out there, or that nobody's in, but they're interesting projects nonetheless that you may also find interesting. Also, lots of random thoughts about whatever's on my mind at that particular moment. Usually it's about food or video games, or foodie video games. Anyway, you can follow me on Facebook at OmadonVA or Twitter at Omadon. Hope to see you there.